Hello, and welcome to the Passion Witch Project. I'm your host, Emily Steckel, pharmacist, Reiki practitioner, and Passion Witch. And on the show, we chat with folks who are leaning into what makes them wonderfully weird and following their passion. And today, there was some mischief from the universe afoot. My guest was stuck in Boston and not able to make it. And this is actually the second time that there's been some mischief afoot with this particular guest. The last time she was supposed to come, the studio was closed and we didn't know about it. And so she arrived and then I had to say, oh, I'm so sorry. So we know that when Madison finally does come on the show, it's going to be an amazing conversation. There's a lot of a lead up to it. So once, I was on my way here when I learned that she wasn't going to be able to make it. And I had some choices. So I opened up my phone and I opened up the text thread that I have with all of these amazing witchy women. And I was like, can anybody come in 30 minutes and chat with me about witchcraft? And nobody was able to come. And I'm calling my brother and I'm calling. Meanwhile, my mom is in the other room. And I just hear her say, what if you went on by yourself? I immediately dismissed that. No way. And then I thought, Mom, you should be on the show. My mom is a very fascinating woman. She was a commercial real estate appraiser, and her work included a lot of appraising big tracts of land for people who wanted to put conservation easements on their properties. So she would be off in the woods tromping around. She got to learn the birds. She got to learn the trees. And so I asked, do you want to talk about your work? And also, she has a very interesting story in that she worked for a company, but found out that her boss was giving all of the men a higher split than she was. So she quit and started her own business. And so I suppose I get my entrepreneurial spirit from her a little bit. She took this big, bold leap to go and try this hard thing by herself. And if you're worried about what happened to the boss, don't worry, he got his comeuppance. He was swinging in a hammock one day and a raccoon came and bit his butt from below. So... No deed goes unpunished when it's, rascally. But anyway, she looked at me and she said, absolutely not. I will not be on camera. And I said, okay, all right. And at that point, I was like, okay, I think I'm running out of time. I have to just call and cancel. So I called the studio and nobody answered. And I was like, well, shoot, I don't want them to think that I've forgotten or bailed on this episode. So I got into my car and I drove here, and on the way over, I was thinking, well, maybe I could do it. I don't know. Stranger things have happened, I suppose. Maybe I could spend 30 minutes talking about myself on camera. And so I'm in the car and I'm giving the experience Reiki. And I do this before many different things in my life. I'll give a situation Reiki. I'll share a little bit what Reiki means to me. Reiki, I like to think of as a universal life force energy. Really what it feels like to me is the energy of unconditional love. We know about so many different kinds of energy. We know about electricity and thermal energy and nuclear energy, and there, all of these different ones we've been able to quantify and measure and qualify. Reiki to me is one that our bodies are particularly well suited to channel. And I think we all channel Reiki, this unconditional love energy, at baseline. And if you think about, if you bump your knee or stub your toe, what's your first instinct? To put your hands there. I think our hands are wonderfully healing, just at baseline. But if you'd like, you can be attuned to Reiki. You can I like to think of it as sort of dialing out the static so that that energy flows a little bit more readily. Where was I? So yeah, I was thinking, I was giving Reiki to this situation in the car. And I do that before every client appointment. I do that before every shift I have at the hospital where I work. I give Reiki to every episode of the show before I meet with my guest. And what that process is I think about the situation, and then so Reiki includes some movements with the hands. It includes some phrases, and again, those things, like the practice of yoga or like the practice of having like a mantra or a mudra, they're just ways that help you focus your attention a little bit. That's the process of giving Reiki for me. It's just focusing by incorporating movement and incorporating sound to help me kind of focus that energy, that compassionate energy to the situation that's ahead. So I'm in the car. I'm giving Reiki to my ability to hold a safe, loving, and joyful space for myself to share my passion on the show today. That's usually what I give Reiki to for my guests, their ability to share their passion in a safe and loving space. So I'm doing that in the car, and I'm thinking, okay, well, like, if I were to do this, what the heck would I talk about? I don't know. I mean, I guess there are so many things that I'm curious about. And I thought, well, I don't want to be alone. I don't like to be alone. I think it's always easier if we have someone to tell our story to. So I went spelunking in my purse for magical artifacts because what else are we going to do? And so I'll share with you some of the things that were in my purse and in my car that I figured I might bring in to just have with me during this episode so I wouldn't feel so alone. And I think really my witchcraft practice is very much relational. When I think about, you think about some of the artifacts associated with witchcraft. We might think about crystals, we might think about herbs, we might think about plants or animal imagery or any of these things. To me, they're relationships, and that's why they work. That's why we can work with them. For example, so this is a piece of aventurine. This is a stone. And so the stone has its own properties, right? You can read about aventurine in any book, and there are people who are much more experienced and practiced with geology and stones than I am. But each stone has its own kind of character, and that's rooted in its chemical makeup, right? So every stone has its own kind of signature. And then there are the stories that I have with the stone. So there's my memory I have of like when I saw it for the first time and how it just drew me right in. I was like, oh, I just have to have that. And then the relationship builds. It builds, by keeping it with me, by having memories with it, by showing it to other people and seeing their reactions. So it's not just a stone anymore. It's a stone that holds story and memory. And that to me is what any magical artifact is. The item itself probably has some innate character that other folks have contributed their own interpretation and meaning to. But then there's also the relationship that any practitioner brings to it that develops and grows over time. So I found that in my purse. Some other things. Oh my goodness. I have, this was given to me. This is a little piece of clay that's fired that says "C" on it. And I got this as a gift on my first experience with somatic breath work, which is an incredibly empowering practice that I highly recommend you have a facilitator to help you with. But somatic breath work is essentially using your breath on purpose to access altered states of consciousness. My first experience, my whole body was vibrating. It was like I couldn't believe that I was generating that much energy just from the way that I was breathing. But anyway, the practitioner, the teacher, gave us all a little gift to take with us. So this is, again, there's a story here with it now. There's the story of when I first received it. There's the story that she brought to it also. So she worked with clay and actually worked with prisoners who were helping to rewrite their story through clay, through sculpting. So this is kind of a little bit of her work, and now there are stories attached to it. A tube of lipstick. You might think, gosh, that's not very magical, but okay, look at it. It's beautiful, right? And I think, makeup for me has become such an interesting reclamation. I think for a lot of us, perhaps women specifically, growing up, we believed that we needed to wear makeup to be pretty or to hide something that was imperfect. And I think now makeup for me feels like a way to step into a new character. Right? When I put on this lipstick, it reminds me of the power of my words. It serves to highlight my mouth in a way that makes me more conscious of what I'm saying and how powerful our words are, right? And I think I've said this before on the show, words to me are very much spells, whether we're saying them out loud or writing them. So, just having a little reminder to wield them wisely. That's what this lipstick is about. I have not tried yet. This is a tea called Fire Witch. I was adventuring around Portsmouth, New Hampshire last week, and I stumbled upon this shop called Spirit Wise. And it's run by two women who have also boldly, fearlessly embraced the word witch. And they're right near Prescott Park in Portsmouth, and they are doing their witchy thing, and it's wonderful. And they're curious and kind, and so this tea just caught my eye because it's Fire Witch, and hi, that's me. So I have them with me through this tea today. These have become one of my favorite magical artifacts, my pink sunglasses, and sometimes it's just a thing is pretty. And we like it because it's pretty. So that's what these are all about. Oh. And then a couple of fun ones. So also exploring around Portsmouth, I found, or actually this was in Salem, Massachusetts, and this is a little card that says, "Out of the million ways that my life could have gone, I'm glad it went the way that brought me to you." And I really do feel that way about pretty much everyone that I meet. I think that's part of magic, the people that we find ourselves so fortunate to know. So it's just a little reminder, again, of relationships. My magic is very relational, so a reminder of that. Which would be, could you call yourself a witch if you didn't have a wand? Of course you could. Not everybody has a wand. But I happened to come by this wand fairly recently, and it's been kicking around in my purse. I haven't done a whole lot with it. I'm planning to cleanse it in the full moon tonight, and we'll see what it's all about. I've never actually used a wand, and I usually use my hands to do my magic. So I don't know what it's going to be about. Well, maybe we'll have an episode later where I can share what wand magic feels like. And then I think the last thing that I was really lucky to have in my purse already is a copy of my grimoire, which is a book of spells. And so I wrote this book when I had left my job as a pharmacist. I'll kind of step back. I had made it to my dream job as a pharmacist. I was at Mass General Brigham, and I was working in ambulatory care, which is what I had always wanted to do. Ambulatory care always called to me because I love people. I love relationships with people. And so ambulatory care pharmacy is very much that. I was privileged to be able to follow up with patients. I had one-on-one visits with them and helped folks manage diabetes and lose weight and quit smoking, and I got to follow up with them and see their progress and just kind of be there to support them. And all of that was really lovely. However, I started to feel this sense that there is so much more that we need than what we're getting from Western medicine. Sure, medications are important, and the time and care and attention that any healthcare provider gives a patient is so valuable and a tremendous gift. But I started to feel like the conversations I was having with folks, there were deeper roots. We can talk about weight loss and we can prescribe medications to help people lose weight, but if we're not really understanding why the weight gain is happening, then we're never really 100% resolving things. And I'm speaking from personal experience as well. I was 75 pounds overweight, and I had a really hard time figuring out why I had gained it all. I'm still figuring that out, I suppose, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that I just wasn't living my most authentic life. I was kind of hiding who I was. I wasn't allowing myself to be weird and free and witchy. I think that sometimes hiding all of that can start to feel heavy. And I think that sort of energetic or spiritual heaviness can in fact manifest as a physical heaviness, as a weight gain. So long story short, I ended up feeling like what I was offering to my patients was partial fixes. And what I really wanted was to dive deep and figure out, like, what is it that we do need to heal? Why is it that 76% of Americans over age 20 are overweight or obese? Like, this is an interesting pattern. What's happening? So I became curious, and I started looking into all the things that fascinated me in the moment, all the things that tickled my witchy curiosity. It started with reading a lot of books, and then it became hard to read. It seemed like everything about my being wanted to experience things firsthand. So I ended up finding Reiki, first experiencing receiving it, and then learning how to give it. Breath work, right? Like I talked about the somatic breath work, incredibly potent. Accessing another state of consciousness to help understand ourself better, to help get to some of those deeper, I'll use the word programs, deeper thought patterns that we don't know necessarily are running with our conscious mind. So there are so many, like meditation was another practice that I really started to enjoy and explore. Even just lighting a candle and staring into it, or just sitting and having a cup of tea in the morning for 30 minutes without any expectation that I would do anything else, or look at my phone or be distracted, just sitting for 30 minutes and allowing myself that peace. All of these little practices opened up doors to other things that piqued my curiosity. I suppose all of that eventually ended up in my curiosity with witchcraft specifically. I think it was always in my blood, if I'm being honest, though, right? I think about my grandmother, my mom's mom, was a genealogist by hobby, and she had traced our family back to sisters who were hanged as witches in Puritan Salem. I don't know their names. This is something that has been on my to-do list a long time to look into. But I think growing up knowing that, it always felt like a part of me. So after exploring all of these other practices to help kind of dig a little bit deeper into who I was, into healing, if we want to use that word, I've really come to define the word healing as just learning, but about ourselves. So I got to this point where I was like, I can't in good conscience live my life just as a pharmacist anymore. I think it's still part of my identity, but I just wanted to be able to offer people and offer myself other things, other ways of digging deeper. And part of my work, part of my passion work, right? This is the Passion Witch Project, is writing. And writing for me has become a way to connect to those deep recesses of my consciousness. It feels like when I write, it's like I'm discovering. I don't often sit down to write with a fully fleshed out idea that I'm going to just kind of blurt out onto the page. It's more like I start with a vague notion of something that's noodling around in there, that's just tickling me. And as I start writing, it comes, and I never know what it's going to be. I like to work with ChatGPT as I'm kind of processing ideas. And the other day, ChatGPT said my writing process was like it was like a golden retriever paleontologist, where the golden retriever paleontologist would run into the cave, dig out a dinosaur bone, bring it back out, like want to show all its people, wagging its tail, and be like, look at the weird thing that I found. Drop it at their feet, and then run off and go find another cave to dig around it. So that's my creative process. I don't know. I thought that was pretty spot on. But anyway, so this book that I wanted to have with me, or that I was lucky to have in my purse to have with me today, this was my act of kind of figuring out who I am. One of the first sort of tangible ways of doing that, because I had done a lot of work, just sort of consciousness work, but this was the first thing that came out of that I can hold in my hand. And it's an exploration of what witchcraft is for me, or what it was for me at the moment I wrote this, and it's changed a lot. And interestingly, I've tried to revise it, but because I'm the golden retriever paleontologist who drops the bone and then runs off into the other cave, I don't always have the patience to sit there with the fine brush and dust off all of the debris to pretty it up and make the bone ready for presentation. So instead what we have is a sort of a raw, dirty bone here. But that isn't to say that it isn't valuable or that it doesn't have purpose for me. And if there's anything that someone else might take from this, it's this. You're allowed to be curious about yourself in whatever shape or form that takes. Maybe it's picking up some crayons and doing some drawing and just seeing what happens. Maybe it's just singing in the shower and not necessarily to a tune that but just letting some sound come out. I know there are a million ways to let your weird out. And when I say weird, I mean like the beauty in the depth of who you are. Just explore, right? There's no pressure to be perfect or get it right. And inevitably, if you find something that you enjoy, like I found such joy in writing, doesn't mean it's easy, but I found joy in it. When you find that, you want to do it. And because you want to do it, you do it. And then you just get better. It's like inevitable that you get better. And I think that just starting is the barrier for so many of us. Because I think our world is so very much on display now. Not for everyone, but for a lot of us. It's very much on display, and what we're seeing are polished, finished products. But most of life isn't that, right? Most of it is the messy, dirty bone before we get to the point that we're ready to kind of present it in a museum. So yeah, whatever your weirdness is, just explore it. Be curious about yourself. So these are the artifacts that I was lucky to have in my purse that are here with me now. And I feel like I've gone through almost the whole show just talking about the weird stuff in my bag. But I suppose the next question I'll ask is the first question that I ask the guests that I usually have on the show. And that question is, if you could be the best in the world at one thing, what would it be? And I always like to tell my guests, you don't have to have an answer, and you're always allowed to change your mind. And I'm going to allow that for myself too, because I have changed my mind a few times with this one, and for various reasons. I think when I was still working as a pharmacist in a large health center where many of my patients didn't speak English, I really wanted to be able to be the best language learner, to be able to understand people and really hear their stories. And I think the other answer that comes up for me often when I think about this question is I'd love to be a great writer of television. I think about shows like Ted Lasso or The Office or, I don't know, so many shows, Parks and Recreation, so many shows that have shaped my understanding of what it means to be human, of what it means to laugh at ourselves even through hard times, for what it means to give a character a full story and treat them with dignity. I think that is something I would really love to be good at. And so perhaps one day I'll find a small way to write some good TV. But in the meantime, I think the essence of that answer, of both answers for me, is I just love story. And as a pharmacist who's studied all kinds of medicines, as someone who's starting a certificate program in psychedelic-assisted therapy and exploring, this whole world of emerging medicines, as someone who's practiced energy healing and that particular form of medicine, I think my favorite medicine of all is our stories. I think when someone who can sit with us, not rush us, who can ask with genuine curiosity, who are you? I think the world starts to open up in this really magical way. And so I hope that you can find someone in your life, and I hope that you can surround yourself with magical allies, whether alive like this lovely plant or not. I hope that you can surround yourself with relationships that feel nourishing and people who can hold space for you to share your story, to explore the depths of who you are, because you're important, you're extraordinary, your story matters. And I hope to hear it. I hope to hear them all. And we'll see you next time on the Passion Witch Project. Thank you.